Have you ever wondered about the inner workings of organizations that claim to do good? In this video, we're going to dive deep into the world of Goodwill Industries, revealing shocking truths that many are unaware of. Meet Sarah. She's a hardworking employee at Goodwill, spending long hours sorting through donated items. However, despite her dedication, Sarah struggles to make ends meet on a wage that barely covers her basic needs. This raises a critical question. Why does Goodwill pay its employees so poorly? Section 1. They pay terribly. Let's start with the basics. Goodwill is notorious for paying its employees far below industry standards. From laundry sorters to job coaches, many struggle to make ends meet on wages that are barely enough to survive. It's a stark contrast to the image of a charitable organization. Section 2. Executives get enormous salaries. But wait, it gets worse. While frontline workers scrape by, Goodwill executives enjoy lavish salaries in the mid-six figures. Imagine earning a salary that could fund a luxurious lifestyle while your employees struggle to afford basic necessities. After one CEO was fired precisely because of his outrageous compensation package, which included a country club membership, he still managed to negotiate a $600,000 severance. Section 3. It's even worse for disabled workers. Now let's talk about the treatment of disabled workers. Goodwill employs many disabled individuals, but they exploit outdated laws to pay them as little as 22 cents per hour. This blatant disregard for fair compensation is shocking and unacceptable. Section 4. They evaluate disabled workers more often than CEOs. To add insult to injury, disabled workers are evaluated more frequently than CEOs. This creates an unfair system where productivity is scrutinized excessively, leading to undue pressure on already marginalized employees. Workers are evaluated every 6 months and often more frequently, which the Huffington Post points out is perhaps a little inefficient, considering they evaluate CEOs only once a year. Section 5. Their wages depend on meeting impossible standards. Imagine being a disabled employee at Goodwill and having to meet impossible standards just to determine your hourly wage. Sorting 100 items of clothing in under 32 minutes, facing challenges that even sighted employees would find difficult, is simply unjust. Section 6. Working at Goodwill can be deadly. Tragically, working at Goodwill can be deadly. Multiple workers, including disabled individuals, have lost their lives in preventable industrial accidents. This lack of proper training and safety measures is a grave injustice. One employee said their forklift class, which lasted only half an hour, was impossible to fail, and another complained about unsafe conditions for 6 months ahead of a fatal accident. Instead of being commended, he was fired. Section 7. They intimidate and fire whistleblowers. Those who try to speak out against these injustices are often met with intimidation and termination. Whistleblowers like David Gowdy have faced retaliation for trying to expose unsafe conditions and discriminatory practices within the organization. David Gowdy, the man who identified the unsafe conditions that ended up killing a coworker, wasn't the only one fired from Goodwill for trying to warn it of his own problems. A North Carolina woman was fired for complaining about a manager calling black employees "you people" and "too loud." An Oklahoma woman was fired for testifying on behalf of a coworker in a discrimination lawsuit, and a Minnesota HR manager was fired for investigating reports that the director of donated goods was directing those donated goods right back into their own pockets. Section 8. They discriminate against employees. Despite claiming to support diversity and inclusion, Goodwill has a track record of discrimination. Lawsuits for discrimination based on sex, race, and disability highlight the hypocrisy of an organization that claims to help those in need. As you can probably tell at this point, Goodwill has lost or settled lawsuits for just about every type of discrimination, from sex to race to disability. Yes, discrimination against the very people they claim to help most. Section 9. They sure don't want the minimum wage raised. Goodwill's opposition to raising the minimum wage further exposes their priorities. Threatening job cuts and firing employees after wage hikes shows a lack of concern for the well-being of their workforce. One of their six-figure CEOs of an Illinois branch flat out told disabled workers they were getting fired after a minimum wage hike before again walking it back after PEEP. Section 10. They use the law to defeat competition. Goodwill's efforts to eliminate competition through legislative means raise serious ethical questions. Pushing for laws that benefit their interests at the expense of smaller thrift stores and donation bins is antithetical to their supposed mission of Goodwill. Section 11. They ship unwanted stuff overseas. When it comes to donations, Goodwill's practices are questionable. Shipping unwanted items overseas, including clothing and e-waste, harms local economies and contributes to global pollution. Section 12. They fought closure during the COVID-19 pandemic. Even during a global pandemic, Goodwill prioritized profits over safety. refusing to close stores deemed non-essential endangered employees and customers alike, showcasing a disregard for public health. Goodwill actually gets shipped overseas, including to developing countries, whose residents say the practice undermines their own textile industries. Goodwill gets $50 million a year for it, though, so screw those guys, apparently. Section 13. Their stuff is gross. Hygiene practices within Goodwill stores have also come under scrutiny. Reports of unsanitary conditions and inadequate cleaning measures raise serious health concerns for employees and customers. Section 14. They might not even give that much to charity. Lastly, questions about the transparency of Goodwill's funding and program allocations cast doubt on their charitable contributions. Funding primarily through grants and retail sales raise concerns about where the money truly goes. In conclusion, the dark truths behind Goodwill Industries paint a stark contrast to their public image of goodwill and charity. From exploitation of employees to questionable business practices, it's clear that there's more to this organization than meets the eye. It's time to demand accountability and transparency from organizations claiming to do good. With that said, thanks for watching the 2-Minute Entrepreneurship channel. Like, share, and subscribe.